Hey guys, what's going on? Sam Bosworth here. As I said in my Dr. Phil video, I wasn't expecting to be making another video quite as soon as this, but the Trump administration has plans to hurt the disabled community again, so let's talk about that. So, for those of you that are unaware, the Trump administration announced a couple of days back that they want to start surveillance on the social media profiles of disabled people who are claiming disability in America to try and catch out the fraudulent claims. So, for example, if they saw a picture of somebody claiming disability who was perhaps playing a sport, whether it's like throwing a basketball into a hoop or perhaps even just like taking a few steps, then it seems that they would deem that that means you are fraudulently claiming disability, and they would look to end your claim and then potentially make you pay damages on top of that for fraud. So obviously that is insane, it is Big Brother, it is ridiculous, and on the surface, especially if you aren't disabled perhaps, you might hear that and think, well, you know, that seems like a good idea. There are absolutely people that fraudulently claim disability when they aren't disabled, and maybe, you know, if we look at people's social media, they'll catch themselves out by posting, you know, a video of them running a marathon or something, and that is absolutely true. There are definitely people that fraudulently claim disability, and, you know, that maybe would be a way to catch them out. I'm going to show you in a little while through some statistics that there isn't that many people that actually fraudulently claim disability, and for that many that there is, it doesn't really cost the government that much money, and I'll talk about why this probably isn't the best way to deal with that in a bit. So first off, we're going to talk about why this isn't a good idea. First and foremost, disabled people should not feel like they cannot post about their lives on social media. I, for example, am a big fan of hockey. I'm a big fan of American football. I like British football, soccer, whatever as well. And, you know, there is every chance that I'm currently looking to buy a hockey stick and a ball so that when I'm in the garden I can, like, mess around. If I was to post a picture of myself doing that, that does not mean I am not disabled. It would absolutely cause me pain to play hockey or to throw a basketball into an air. It would hurt my arms, it would hurt my hands, it would hurt everything. But if I choose to mess around and do that and post a video to my Instagram or to my Facebook, that does not all of a sudden mean I am no longer disabled. You know, it would definitely cause me pain. It would be something that was just probably 5 or 10 minutes for me to do. It wouldn't be something that I'm doing all the time, trying to become a professional basketball player. And this is the issue, because they're going to see a post like that, maybe someone even in a wheelchair just throwing a ball into a hoop in a 5-second boomerang on Instagram or something like that, and they're going to assume, oh, well, this person isn't that disabled, they can do that, they must be doing this all the time. That probably isn't the case. It's probably a 5-minute thing. They probably went outside to get some fresh air, maybe their friend was playing basketball, they thought, I know, this will make a good thing for my Instagram, I'll do this. And that's it. Then they'll have gone back inside. They'll probably have been in pain doing it, and there'll probably be a recovery period after. It does not mean they are no longer disabled. Another thing that I've seen mentioned in some articles about this is talking about perhaps a video of somebody dancing. Like if I was dancing in my chair, or if I posted a clip of me standing up on my crutches, kind of grooving around, you know, as you do. That would not mean I wasn't disabled. Again, it doesn't mean I dance all the time. It probably hurts to do. Another interesting thing is perhaps these videos I do now. I am sitting doing a YouTube video. Right now my back is probably a 6 out of 10, but I continue to do these videos because I'm passionate about it. I use heat pads. I have a long recovery period after filming them. But to a guy in an office working for the SSA or whatever the company is called in the US that deals with the welfare and the benefits, sees that video, to him he might think, well, look at this guy, he's sitting doing videos, he could totally work in an office. Not the case at all. In immense pain, long recovery period, not right. Disabled people should not have to feel that they cannot live their lives and post about their lives on social media just for fear of losing all of their finances, all of their money, and even their access to medical care because of this. Another huge issue with this is even people without disability will absolutely only show the good parts of their lives on social media. You hear about this all of the time, that obviously there is a huge lack of transparency when it comes to celebrities or anyone really using social media. I'll take myself, for example, not calling myself a celebrity at all, but up until about 3 years ago, I had never posted a picture using crutches or a walking stick or a wheelchair or anything like that, and I never would. I didn't like talking about my disability on social media. I guess I was in the frame of mind that I didn't want my friends to see me as weak or, disabled. Looking back now, obviously that is ridiculous and I hate myself for acting that way, but it's understandable in today's society why that is the case. The people who, again, are sitting in these offices, I suppose, if this goes through, looking and trawling through people's social media profiles, are going to look through someone's thing and say, well, there isn't one picture of this person using a wheelchair or using crutches. And there might be a picture of them standing up with their partner or standing up at an event where they've taken a picture where they've obviously stood up for a few seconds to take a picture for their Instagram because they didn't want their walking aid to be in the picture, which is totally understandable and totally okay, and then they've gone back in their wheelchair and dealt with their pain and dealt with their evening, whatever. But to the guy in the office, all he sees is the picture of them standing up and maybe in their... I'm not sure how the process for applying for disability is in the US. I would imagine it's pretty similar to the process over here in the UK. They've said that they can't stand because it puts them in a lot of pain. The guy's going to say, well, here's a picture of you standing, no more money for you, and that is completely ridiculous and completely unfair. Even those of us who are not disabled only post the good parts of our lives on social media every day, and it's a pretty common thing, so that is really unfair to be judged on that. Another issue with this is it views all disabled people as the same and puts them into the same boat. There are people in wheelchairs who can walk, there are people with cerebral palsy who can run and do marathons and stuff like that. There are plenty of different disabilities and they all act differently, so to have, I would imagine these people would have a set of guidelines for things to look for on social media, and that isn't fair because every single disabled person's disability is different. Even the people, I have Charcot-Marie tooth disease, there are plenty of people like me there are people with CMT who do run marathons. I obviously couldn't, I'm in a wheelchair, I use crutches, I can barely walk, I'm in agony when I stand. But there are plenty of disabled people with the same disability who have completely different lives and completely different levels of that disability and ability in general. So obviously that's a huge issue and something which I really doubt would be taken into account. Another issue I've seen being talked about on articles about this is the whole concept of inspiration porn. For those of you not aware, that is sort of the concept when you see a post of like somebody with a disability doing something like insane and miraculous out of a wheelchair or whatever, and then it gets shared around on all the normie sites and everyone goes mental and they say, what an inspiration, if I was disabled I wouldn't even be able to get out of bed, but this guy's doing this, that's crazy. That tends to be looked on as inspiration porn. Now this could cause an issue for this sort of concept as well, because I'm trying to put this nicely because honestly I've been guilty of it as well. A lot of us with disability know or realise, especially people like me who are doing YouTube or trying to make a brand or a name for themselves, that when you share a post of you in your wheelchair or in your crutches, it tends to get a lot more sort of reactions and likes and comments and stuff on Facebook, and again it can get shared even to like the regular non-disability related Facebook pages and obviously build your brand up. So there are definitely a lot of these people who are in videos like this where they've done something that isn't perhaps normal for a disability, and that could go viral, and that could end up in that person losing their money or finance or access to medical care, whatever, because they've posted this video that was probably just a 5 or 10 minute thing for them that they could do maybe once in a lifetime, or once every now and again while they're probably still in pain. And this goes back to my first point. Just because you see somebody in a video or in a picture doing something which is out of the ordinary for disability or a disabled person, this does not all of a sudden mean they are no longer disabled. So that kind of inspiration porn culture that we are living in now, where you see these videos all the time, that can end up damaging the people that make these videos. And obviously that isn't fair either, because it probably isn't a fair sort of view into their life, and it won't be how they behave and act and be a good representation of their disability every day. What worries me about this is I don't think there's going to be a lot of outrage from outside of the disabled community. When we're disabled, it tends to be that people look to help us when we look weak or when we look frail, and if we look strong or anything, which is kind of what this is about, they don't want to stick up for us. On top of that, you hear all the time people, especially on, I think, the right side of politics, talking about how there is a huge number of fraudulent people in disability, and the people who apply for disability and are on disability are just lazy, they could totally work, and you get people who are always on the lookout to call somebody out. Like, even I get it in my wheelchair with my crutches, and I have a disabled badge for my car. I get it all the time, people thinking I don't need it or that I'm faking it, whatever. And I think no one's going to speak up against this really, because they'll think it's a good thing, because they want people to be caught out. They don't want people to be fraudulent. I sat this morning and trolled through a bunch of resources and worked out some math around this, and wanted to talk to you about why this isn't as big of an issue as it might seem on the forefront. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to talk through what I've discovered this morning. I'm going to put all my sources down in the description, and I'm going to try and either put up on the screen now the maths I'm talking about so you can follow along, or I will put it in a separate document that I'll put on Google Drive or something in the description, so be sure to check out the description to sort of see how I came to these conclusions. So I want to talk about the sort of percentage of fraudulent claims that are, and just generally how America deals with their welfare system and why it isn't necessarily. So I want to talk about how many people are on disability, how many of those people are claiming fraudulently, stuff like that, how much money is actually being given out fraudulently, and what a percentage of the entire SSA sort of budget is for fraudulent claims. Okay, so we're going to get into the maths here. So basically, I found some data from 2011 which suggested there are 311.6 million people in the US of A. And then I found some more data from that year, 2011, which showed that 4.6% of the population received disability. So that means in 2011 anyway, there were 14.3 million people on disability. Now, I looked at the total amount of the budget for welfare in the US, and in 2018, that money was $1.06 trillion. Now, it's going to get a little bit complicated. I hope what I say makes sense. I'll try and write it up on the screen to make it make more sense. $1.06 trillion for all welfare, so that includes retirement, that includes disability, that includes Medicare and stuff like that, so it includes all of that stuff. So to figure out how much of that went to disability, I had to plug in the percentage of people that claim disability against the amount of people that claim SSA in total. So that is 14.3 million people is 23.8% of 60 million people. So 14.3 million people claim disability, that is 23.8% of the 60 million that claim any welfare of any kind at all. So then I decided to look at how much money was paid fraudulently to the entirety of SSA claimants, from retirement to Medicare to disability and all that sort of stuff. And that number sits at $7.64 billion, which admittedly sounds like quite a lot of money to you and I, but in terms of the entire budget, $1.06 trillion isn't that much. So next I wanted to work out how much of that $7.64 billion was actually being fraudulently paid just to people who are fraudulently claiming disability. So if we plug in our 14.3 million people, which is 23.8% of the 60 million entirety claimants for SSA, we find out that $1.81 billion was fraudulently paid just to people who should not have been claiming disability when they were. So again, that is $1.81 billion being paid to people who perhaps should not have been claiming. I'm not going to say they all shouldn't have been claiming it. We all know how the government works. We all know that the criteria for claiming is incredibly tight and incredibly strict. So I don't know how many of these claims got turned over and they ended up getting it back again. But for now, we're going to say that $1.81 billion was paid to people claiming disability when it should not have been. So if we go back and look at the entire budget for welfare, which was $1.08 trillion, and we look at how much of a percentage $1.81 billion was that should not have been paid to disability, we find out that disability fraud accounted for 0.17% of the entire welfare budget. Now you tell me, do you think Donald Trump and his administration are right in saying that they want to spend money and pay people to scour people's social media profiles and catch out fraudulent claimants for a 0.17% of the budget, which again, to you and I, $1.81 billion, obviously a fortune. But when you take that as part of $1.06 trillion, do you think this is a fair way tracking people's social media? I've already explained why that isn't fair. Do you think that's right? I absolutely do not think it's right. And bear in mind, we worked out that there are 14.3 million people claiming disability, or somewhere around there, depending on the fluctuation of each year. 14.3 million people. How many people do you think the administration is going to have to pay to scour 14.3 million people's social media profiles if they aren't getting tips from other people? And even if they are getting tips, how many tips do you think they're going to get? Thousands? Hundreds of thousands? Millions? It doesn't make sense. This is not a fair way to do things. It's absolutely abhorrent. There are far better ways to catch out fraudulent claimants. If the system itself, the way you apply, the way you're assessed, was right and fair in the first place, then you wouldn't need to implement a system like this, which is too big brother to even defend, to try and catch people out. It's ridiculous. I hope that all made sense to you. It was a lot of research. I'll put all the links down in the description from where I found each figure, and I'll try and put the maths in a separate form if I can, so you can understand how I got to the numbers I did get to. It just seems insane that this is going to cost the country, the US, money to do. They're going to have to pay staff to scour these profiles. They're going to have to come up with a list of criteria, which will undoubtedly be unfair, and the videos they see will not necessarily be a fair representation of how a disabled person lives their life, because I think everybody, including myself, perhaps lies about how good their life is on social media. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I would love to hear what your thoughts are on this. Do you think it's fair that they want to effectively spy on people's social media profiles to try and catch out fraudulent people? I know when you say it like that, it doesn't sound that bad, but when you've heard what I've spoke about today, do you think that's a fair way to do things? Let me know down in the comments. I would absolutely love to hear from you. Feel free to like this video. It really helps me out and it'll help more people see the video too. And as always, you can subscribe to see more videos like this. Click the little bell next to it if you want to get a notification every time I post. I usually post one video a week, but when there's news like this, I try and do a video on it as soon as I can. So thank you guys again so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Have a great day. Bye!